dear friends. You're welcome to a new episode on this English podcast. Today's episode is number 162, coming to you from our studios in Shanghai. This is your regular host, Teacher D, sitting in from our studios. Today is Monday, May 17th, 2021, and we're going to continue with our ongoing series on IELTS. And in today's episode, we're going to focus on Task 2 writing. Task 2 writing, we're going to look at the structure of your essay. We're going to look at how you can plan your essay into 5 paragraphs, for example, and then we're going to look at some of the things that you should prepare as a candidate. You should prepare how to talk about certain topics, and we'll give you the structure of those kind of topics. So that's what we're going to focus on in today's episode. Sit tight, get a piece of paper or get your notebook, and then you can write down the things that we're going to discuss, the points that you find very, very important. Before we get into today's episode, I would like to say hello to our friend in South Korea, Joanna. I'm talking about Joanna. She sent in a very, very long email explaining how she is preparing for the IELTS test and how she finds the things that we've been discussing in previous episodes very useful. So thank you, Joanna, for being a very, very loyal listener to this podcast. And I encourage other listeners to send in your comments too. That's very, very encouraging to me. So with that said, I'm going to go straight into our content for today because we have a lot to discuss. So the first thing is planning your essay. Like I discussed in the previous episode, do as much as possible to spend 2 minutes in making a short plan, a short essay plan before you start writing. When you read your essay topic, sometimes you feel like, oh, I know what I'm going to talk about because maybe there is this first point that comes to mind, and immediately you feel like to start writing. It's not very right, because maybe after writing that one point, you don't really know what else to say. The best thing to do is to take some time, read the topic again, look at the keywords in the topic, and see some topics have 2 or 3 parts. This is something that a lot of students don't know. Some topics have 2 or 3 parts. So when you write forgetting 1 or 2 parts of the topic, you are very likely to have a very low score. Always make sure you underline all the key aspects of the topic. So don't rush over the topic that you have in front of you. Read the topic. Second thing, underline the keywords and expressions in the topic. Those keywords in your essay, the examiner needs to see whether you understand the keywords in that topic. Okay, and then pay attention to how many parts your topic is. You could have a topic like, nowadays, many students would like to study abroad. Do you think it is a good idea or not? Use examples to justify your point of view. You see, this topic, you can break it down into 2 parts. First, you have to show whether it's a good idea or not. And then the second part, you need to use examples to show, to support your opinion. So, and there are some topics that have like 3 parts. You have to break down this topic, and if you understand the topic very well, then that helps you to draw your essay plan. So the first thing to do, read the topic, underline the keywords, and then see how many parts the essay topic has. And then from there, you move on to your essay plan. And like I said last time, your essay plan is not a lot of writing. No, you simply say introduction. You don't even have to write the word introduction. You just say intro, I-N-T-R-O, intro. And you make a keyword. You write a keyword, maybe a key expression, something you're going to say. You could say, for example, in my introduction, I'm just going to mention that a lot of students go to study abroad because of the assumption that it is a guarantee to get a job when they come back. Okay, you can bring up that in your introduction. Okay, you can just say, I agree that it's a good idea, and then the illustration will come later. Then after that paragraph, which is the introduction, you have other paragraphs. You should be able to say, okay, in paragraph 1, this is what I would say. Paragraph 2, this is what I would say. Paragraph 3, this is what I would say. Paragraph 4, this is what I would say. And in the conclusion, this is what I would say. So it's a quick overview of the things that you're going to say in each paragraph. That's what an essay plan is. And don't think that you can just have this essay plan in your head. You really have to write it down. When you write it down, you then proceed to writing your essay with a lot of confidence. So a good essay plan, we should see P1, which is the introduction, P2, P3, P4, P5, which is like a conclusion. I encourage my students to do the 5-paragraph style essay. The 5-paragraph essay is usually the standard. It's usually the best kind of essay. And if you will notice that good essays that get good scores are usually in 5 paragraphs. So try to practice writing a 5-paragraph essay. In a 5-paragraph essay, the first paragraph is the general introduction, and then you have 3 paragraphs in the middle. Those 3 paragraphs in the middle will bring up the points that you have for or against something. And then the last paragraph, of course, is the general conclusion. So if you can write this kind of essay, and you will see that these 5 paragraphs will usually get you to the required number of words. See, so usually I recommend students who are making an essay plan, I tell them the first paragraph, which is the introduction, can be about 30 words. And then the second paragraph, which is like your most important point, your most powerful point, can be about 70 words. That makes 100 words. Paragraph 3 can be about 60 words. And then paragraph 4, which maybe you have changed and you're now discussing the opposite opinion, can be about 70 words. And then paragraph 4 can be about 60 words, and then the last paragraph can be about 20 words. So you see, try this 5-paragraph style. It's a very, very good way to tackle essay writing. I'm not saying that you really have to write 5 paragraphs, but depending on the kind of topic that you get and your ideas, you could find out that your essay will be maybe 6 paragraphs, or your essay will be 4 paragraphs, but always try to keep it like 5 paragraphs, more or less, can be really good. What we're trying to say is you don't want to have this kind of essay where I saw an essay written by a student and the essay was about 10 paragraphs, and some paragraphs are just like one line, one sentence. One sentence cannot be a paragraph. You really have to develop a paragraph. You know, a paragraph has a topic sentence and then has like 3 sentences to explain the point, and then an example, and then a conclusion to that paragraph. So take time to write a healthy paragraph, not that kind of scanty paragraph that doesn't really bring up a point of view. Each paragraph should contain a point or 2 points or 3 points that support one side of an argument. That's how you should try to organize your points in your essay. And at the same time, your paragraph cannot be too long. You cannot have a paragraph that is like more than 1 page, because then it becomes boring to read. So make sure that your paragraph is sizable. That's why I told you something between 50 to 80 words. It's a very good measure for the body paragraph. And for introductions and conclusions, try to limit them to something like 25 to 30 words. With that said, we go on to the next thing that I would like you to note in this episode. So when you're preparing to write a task 2 essay in IELTS, what are the kind of things, what kind of language structure should you prepare? Okay, I have a list of eight aspects of language that I encourage my students to prepare because they're very useful when it comes to essay writing. Number 1 is talking about the origins of something. This is something you should learn. Take your own examples. Let's say customs, certain customs in your society, and try to say, how can I talk about the origins of these customs? This is something that can show up in your essay. Number 2, talking about the causes of a problem. You should learn how to talk about the causes of a problem. So look at some problems in the society in which you live and think about the causes of those problems. Sometimes your essay topic will be to discuss those causes. Number 3, types. Talking about the types or the kinds or the categories of something. You should be able to take something and put it in different categories or different types. Let's say, for example, you're talking about pollution. You should be able to talk about the different types of pollution. So that's one thing you can prepare. You can learn how to talk about or write about the different types of something. Number 4, we have discussed that before. Number 4 is advantages and disadvantages. So talking about the advantages and disadvantages of something. This is a very regular one. We find that in a lot of essay topics. So that's something you can practice. And then almost everything you can think about, there is always a pro and con side. There's always the benefits and the drawbacks, always the positive and the negative points. You should be able to talk about that, whether you're talking about general education, science, the internet, watching movies, playing computer games. Pick anything around you and try to find the advantages and disadvantages. It's a very useful way to prepare for essay writing. Number 5, talking about the consequences of something. The consequences of something. If you have this situation, what does it lead to? Positive and negative effects or the impact of something. So those consequences, you have to learn how to talk about the consequences of a population, the consequences of an aging population, the consequences of unemployment, all those things that you find around you in the society. They all have consequences. You should know how to talk about them. Number 6, problems and solutions. So you should be able to present problems that are found in a particular sector in a country. Could be in education, could be in business, could be with the judiciary, could be with the society. You should be able to talk about problems and solutions or suggestions, things that can help to solve those problems. That's number 6. And number 7, compare and contrast. This is a very classic kind of essay, compare and contrast. Could be to compare and contrast a situation that was in the past with a situation that is existing now. So it could be to compare and contrast. And remember that when you compare and contrast something, you're actually talking about the differences as well as the similarities. So that's one thing to also learn how to write about. And then number 8, talking about the future of something. There are certain things, certain situations we experience now, but what will the future look like? So we are probably, one thing people are talking about right now is e-learning. E-learning has become a very, very popular thing in education. So you could have a topic that would want you to imagine what the future will look like in education. What will the future of education look like? So you have to be able to imagine the changes that will take place, the challenges, the problems, and so on. So these are the 8 things that I use to prepare my students for task 2 writing, and I hope you wrote them down and they can be useful to you. I'm going to write them on the page of the podcast for those who didn't write them down. I'm going to publish them on the page of the podcast so you can actually use them as a guide. With that, we come to the end of this episode. I'll be looking forward to your feedback. Our 15 minutes are up, and this is Teacher D signing off. Have a wonderful week and see you in the next episode. Goodbye.